This is a dark day in America.
Good evening, folks, and welcome to Alien Addict on this fine, luxurious evening. It is luxurious because we're still alive. We're still here on whatever we live on. But our guest tonight, American Vindicta show, Wrecker. He's been on before. We appreciate him. He gives us his time, and we're going to talk some wild stuff. But first of all, David, how you doing, my lad?
I'm alive. I'm here.
You are alive. You are here. The links are in the description below, people. Obviously, censorship and all that jazz. We can get a lot of stuff done on all the podcast stuff. We've got the Fringe podcast, I think, coming out on Monday. And that will, at some point, we'll upload that to YouTube if we can get away with it. So we'll see what we can get away with tonight. Wrecker, welcome to the show, mate. How are you doing?
What's up, fellas?
It's great to have you back.
Yeah, man. Nice to be back. Thanks for inviting me.
First of all, mate, what's been going on in your world?
The usual. We have a online ministry, and so typically we like to work on the matter of the heart for people. From there, we have a few different things going on where we do tactical training. So those courses take up a good bit of our time. And then there's a recent new series that my wife and I are starting, and we're going to be comparing black magic and black ops. What's the connection between both? And, there's a lot of connection between these two things. And so we're just, kind of starting the preliminary parts of like this investigation. We're just gathering as much material as possible. There's already a lot that we probably all know of, but trying to make it, come all alive in order is proving a little difficult, but it's interesting. It's interesting. I don't think you can divide technology and the supernatural for very much longer. I think we're all going to discover they're one and the same at some point.
Is this going to be a completely separate channel?
Nope. It's all going to be on the American Vindicta show. It's going to be a multiple part series. Today was working on Nazis and the Occult, which is something I've gone over many times. We're going to be going over the alien, demon, demonic occultism and technology that's all attached to that, like Jack Parsons, Aleister Crowley, the Fabian Society, the Nazi connection and ties into that, and the amount of black arts that is practiced within, let's say, our more secretive agencies here in America, how it all kind of ties together and why does it tie together. So we're going to be exposing a lot of that.
How long have you ridden both the trains when it comes to the alien thing, demon thing, or has that always been a thing for Wrecker? Has that always been your thought that they're demonic, they're fifth dimensional beings, whatever?
I will tell you comfortably that there's a few things that are happening. For one, there's nuts and bolts aircraft. There just are. Okay. Along with nuts and bolts aircraft or a lot of other very unexplainable things. Going all the way back to the 30s and 40s with the Foo Fighters and the seeing of these glowing spherical objects out in the sky. Nobody knows what that is. We call them orbs. Are they angels? Or are they demons? I don't know. but I know that whatever it is travels at a rate of speed and a bit of a agility of a flying vessel that no one can explain. So from there, it's anyone's gambit as to trying to explain what that is. But then you have the demonic force side of it, the evil side of it. You gotta also understand that word demonic, kind of in my mind, it's an umbrella term, but it's not an accurate term. Demons or disembodied spirits of giants and the other fallen entities that were created by the Nephilim that are trapped here on this earth. We have above that a hierarchy. There's a hierarchy of that. You have fallen angels and whatever technology they have. We know they have technology. We know they've used it. We know that they came down here and they taught man that. But besides that, what are they? Man, I have no freaking idea. Except, the things that the Bible tells us and what eyewitnesses tell us. So I think that there's parallels here. For one thing, I think we have to start off with the whole world lies in the evil one. So Satan is doing his best to confound, to confuse, and to deny Christ at all chances. So he's going to advance technology and he's going to advance occultism. He's going to advance multiple different variations of religion, and he's going to exalt people and give them a platform. All right, that's always been happening. Anything to deny Jesus. It's never to deny Buddha. It's never to deny Muhammad. It's never to deny Scientology. It's never to deny anything else except Jesus. One thing that's interesting is, did you know that in the 30s, 20s, 30s, 40s, Germans and Austrians and other like-minded people that were really big into the occult and seances were channeling aliens. So you mean to tell me, and here's what's interesting, aliens were first from Mars, and then they were from Venus, and then when every swinging Charlie could go out there and buy a freaking telescope and look at these planets, now they're from Zeta Reticuli and from all these other places that we don't have the ability to actually go out and look. So I think it's funny how they keep moving further away. But you could summon an alien, and then the alien would pass on this esoteric Eastern religion style ideas of, you need to be one with nature and not try to kill each other. And in fact, has either denied Jesus Christ or has said Jesus came from us. Well, why not Allah? Why not Muhammad? Why not Buddha? Why don't they ever say that? No, I think there's an agenda there. Secondarily to that is you have Stephen Greer. Now, part of me likes Stephen Greer because he produces what I would say are very good documentaries. I think very guided documentaries with various informations that's given to him, and I question how he got it, and I question how he's alive with some of the information he has. And then you got to talk about the multiple CE events. So CE 1 through 6. He is the CE 5 guy. All right. That's what he claims that he's all about. So when you hear Stephen Greer talk, if you go back into his anthology when he was younger, he was big into Eastern religions and yogiism. All right. We all know that yogiism is just another way for you to thin the veil to float the spirit out into the nether worlds. What's interesting about this part is that nuts and bolts aircraft created by a civilization of beings in Zeta Reticuli, you can just sit out in a field cross-legged and everybody just think about a alien or a spacecraft, and then they just appear out in the sky. My friends, that is not, I believe, how that technology works. I believe most heartedly that is your demonic force. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers of the air, and things that are now working in this darkness of the world, this darkness, because the darkness is anything that will try to exclude the light of Christ. Right? That's why technology is all about denying God all the time, to the point that technology becomes God for some people. All right. But on the vice versa, you also have men like Jack Parsons, who has this quote: "An end to slave morality, an end to prudery and shame, to guilt and sin, to restriction and inhibition. For I, the Antichrist, am come among you. There is no law beyond. Do what thou wilt." That's Jack Parsons. Jet Propulsion Laboratories. He's one of the guys. He's one of the guys who helped us send rockets up into space and the advancements of all that. He was a rocket scientist and an occultic magician who studied underneath Aleister Crowley. In fact, he was Aleister Crowley's number 2 man. So, what's the connection, Ollie? Why, if you're a man of math and science, do you need this connection to esotericism, to paranormal stuff? Why the connection? Why did the Nazis have the same connection?
Well, this is something we've worried for quite some time. We worried about it, as in, I was the one who thought it's always been nuts and bolts craft. I met Dave, and I'm like, and then I met Lee. But Lee and Dave probably around about the same time. And then all of a sudden, this channel's just flips, turned upside down. And I wouldn't say it's just because of these two, but I think everybody's mindset's starting to change with this. And it seems like that is naturally where people are going, that have been in this field for such a long time. Because, like you just said with Stephen Greer, summoning aliens, nuts and bolts craft, to like using your head and like praying for something to come along and just show up in the sky. That's just not going to happen. You know, that's like a miracle, or the complete opposite of that.
Well, you know, right now we have a distinction in various different beliefs of people. You have part of the Vatican who says that the aliens are going to eventually be our space brothers and even possibly baptize us when they get here because they've been closer to God than we are. You have people who don't believe in anything at all, and science is it. You have people that are Christians and don't believe in almost any science, and that everything that is of an advanced technology that you can't explain, it's demonic. There's a bridge here. There's a bridge here. Just like how I think the Tower of Babel was a bridge. There was a form of technology that was given by man, by something we can't explain, and then it was all done away with. God did away with it, separated everybody, and divided everyone by language and borders, and now we can never do that again. But it appears the ability to get back to that is where we're going. And you know, if God was not the problem here for many people, if Jesus was not the problem here for many people, then why the debased nature of man? And why is it getting more debased? And why is occultism growing in America, also around the world? Satanism is growing now in America and now around the world, when these things are all colliding with socialism and communism. And then you have another side of the world that is growing more bold, I would say, with conservatism and their Christian faith. And there's a division here amongst the two, it appears. And somewhere in between here lies truth with the UFO story, right? Whatever landed in Roswell, 47, 48, there was 2 different landings. One that was recovered, we don't really know. The other one that was recovered, we kind of know that it was most likely from the Germans that were recruited by Russia, and it had some German language on it. And from there, good luck finding any more valuable information, because it's all scuttlebutt from there. I think it's interesting. We've said this before on the show, but I'll bring it up, that when Project Blue Book was initiated and then finally stopped in like 94, 95, there was no threat that they came up with. They said there's no threat. And out of like 8 to 12,000 different occurrences that they were documenting for UFOs. There was only like 800 that they say would have some sort of validity to it, and not enough really from there for them to go anywhere further. So they ended it, declassified the program. Well, then come Arrow. And now with Arrow, now there is a threat. So when was there a threat? When was there not a threat? Or did the government just not tell us because we didn't have a need to know? Did the threat level change out of nowhere? Did David Icke finally expose the reptilians, and that's why we have a threat now? Or is it something closer to the fact that maybe the one who's in charge of this world currently is growing closer to his time, and that's why technology is speeding up, and that's also why, I don't know, maybe the New Ageism is growing sporadically throughout the world, that technology being more exposed, but yet the government comes out and slams the ban hammer. Well, we'll tell you just enough to entice you, and then we won't tell you anymore. We'll tell you just enough for you to know that we have craft, people are studying craft, we've even found craft in archaeological sites, but Bob Lazar is a liar, so we'll just disincentivize him, right? Who do we believe at this rate? Who do we believe? And will people even believe what they see when it's exposed? That's one of the things I'm watching right now with this whole thing.
I don't think people will care.
I'm kind of right there with you, Dave.
Yeah, they're not going to care. We'll change nothing in their life. There will be no hiccup. They're going to be the gas pump, and they look at their buddy. Did you see that on TV? Yeah, that can't be real. That can't be real. I'm going fishing this weekend. What are you doing? That's what's going to be. What's it's going to be.
I think that social media hasn't helped with this. The AI generation of crap hasn't helped with this. I mean, even when, we went down to Peru and we went to go and investigate alien face peelers, we came even further away from the thought of aliens after doing our investigation down there. Like, the thing that we're fairly certain is going on is someone has truly advanced technology and extraordinarily dastardly horrific ideas of what to do with it to humanity, right?
They're hunting people down there, right? Somebody has access to next-gen technology, hunting people for sport and trophy.
And whatever has happened down there has kind of moved out of the area, which is weird. It's moved out of the area. Now, don't forget, down there, this is a place filled with mysticism, filled with people searching the ayahuasca dreams. And, Satan's minions are definitely there, providing healing to all the rock stars and politicians who want to go and visit it.
As long as you're willing to talk with the serpent.
Yep. It's always a serpent. But whatever this other thing was, is no longer there. And I don't really know where it's gone outside of that. We don't have the resources to talk to people, but it's appeared all up and down the Amazon, from Peru all the way to Brazil. So whatever that is, there's accuracy there when you talk to people that are victims or eyewitnesses, and the accuracy being everyone's pretty much saying the same thing, seeing the same thing. So, and some people don't like eyewitness testimony, but eyewitness testimony is what can find you guilty in a court. So why can't we use it in the court of public opinion? But why didn't the government tell us more? Like, okay, aliens are real. You said it enough. Show me a body. You say you got them. What's so top secret about seeing it? Show me the body. And it's either A, they don't have it, and they're lying to us all, and we're just stringing us along, or B, it's probably not what we think it is.
I think it's B. I think it's B. I think if they whipped out an alien body and we saw how much it looked just like us, people would be like, what? I mean, it's bigger, but that's not at all what the movie said it was supposed to look like. Yeah. I think you're right on that.
Yeah. Well, what do you think? Go ahead, Ollie.
I was just going to say, with with the whole Peru case, there was one thing that stood out to me that you guys were talking about, and that was them describing, and I think it was one of the fishermen that described a craft that was see-through underneath, and he could see a physical pilot piloting this thing, and it just reminded me of I've forgotten the name of the helicopter that has the dome at the bottom where you can see the pilot. I know what he wasn't describing an helicopter, but he may be describing something that's massively advanced that is kind of like an helicopter that has been crafted off whatever that technology is that we've got from them, whoever they are. And that's what it sounded like.
When we came there with videos and photos of hoverboards, the jetpacks that the military is using, various different types of drones and aircraft. And I mean, the whole time while we're in this village, there's jets flying over us, passenger jets. There's helicopters from the military. They know what these things are. These aren't aborigines. They know what this technology is. And what they described to us was completely different. And the other thing that seemed to be interesting is that anytime they described this technology to us, it almost always included a humanoid figure, right? Not an octopus, right? Not a xenomorph, a humanoid figure that was always between 6.5 and 7 feet tall. Now, I don't get into thinking much more of it than that. Because I believe what my eyes see, and then I gather evidence, and from there, let it be what it is. I don't know if it's a freaking gray alien. I don't know if it's a mantis or whatever a lot of other people are believing it is, but I think most likely it's a person. Honestly, I think most likely it's a person. Sounds like a person. The motivations feel like that of a person. The interactions with the villagers and whatever these things were sounded like they were interacting with people. And they had some sort of advanced technology that just doesn't make sense to us. And I'm quite certain that the elite have advanced technology that don't quite make sense to us, that they'll pull out of the hat and be a rabbit trick. Right? The moment we're all trying to kill each other, World War III, some guy will appear. Hey, I have this advanced miracle technology. Aliens gave it to me. And we're all being kind of set up for it. Honestly, from the movies to the TV series, social media. Heck, we're not helping with the contribution of this. Anytime you talk about this, it helps for that final eventual thing. Tucker Carlson recently said, I don't believe it's nuts and bolts aircraft. I believe it's demons and aliens, or that the aliens are demons now. So yeah, I think that it's interesting the direction this is going now.
Do you think every man and his dog at some point is going to believe in, let's just say, little green men from Mars, from Zeta Reticula?
No, I don't think so, because I won't believe it. For one thing, when the government comes out and says, this is what we need you to believe, you believe the opposite of that. Two, me being rooted in my foundation of Christ, I look at things through a biblical world lens. Now, because of that, but also because I have much experience in this world, I also know varying different ways of how to actually critically think about this, but also to understand that my critical thinking does not surpass technology that I cannot explain that God has, or powers and principalities that I cannot fight with fleshly weapons, and these things are combated through spiritual realms. These two things are colliding now. In my life, it's colliding now in people like Tucker Carlson and others. And it's probably one of the number one things that is hidden from our government, or our government hides from its people more than anything else. Look at this whole TV series called Skinwalker Ranch. All right, on History Channel. I love it. It's awesome. It's a fun show to watch. A lot of cool technologies used in it. And I'm a nerd, so I like to see all the cool technology. However, if you read Hunt for Skinwalker, the book that initiated this whole TV series. Guess what they never share or talk about?
The cigarette smoking dogs in trench coats.
Well, you have that. They never talk about the paranormal stuff.
Correct.
Ever. And paranormal, what they'll talk about is, well, there's some strange energy interference. That is not what we're talking about. That's not what we're talking about. What about the unspeakable things or unexplainable things that have happened to that family and to people visiting, where they had hitchhikers who followed them home, which was a poltergeist-like activity that would happen. We call that demonic, right? Why doesn't that ever get talked about? Did it just stop?
It has not stopped. And one of the interesting things they do not talk about in regards especially to that hitchhiker effect isn't just that phenomenon follows people. It's that constant onslaught wears people's mental faculties down. And other people's egos get stoked in such a way they spin out into insane things that are beyond their normal character. It's like radiation. Exposure to it, maybe it lingers with you for a while or carries it, and if it can, it sets in. I know someone who's been out there on the ranch, did an investigation, and all the power poles and lines started vibrating while he was there. They all started shaking.
I think it is.
Yeah.
Being on the show. Yeah.
Yeah. And he got some video footage and whatnot, and he ended up putting it out, and then they ended up suing him. So he ended up taking it down, and it was just it was a whole thing.
Well, I mean, they've invited people out there to do Native American ceremonies. They've invited people out there to do Kabbalistic Jewish ceremonies, but they have not invited a preacher to go out there and to start preaching the name of God openly to be filmed at all.
One of the other tactics that they take, and it's I think it's a known thing in the TV world of paranormal, but they get people to come out there and invite them. And of course, to step on the grounds and to do anything, you have to sign a ridiculous amount of NDAs. And then they got you. So you can only capitalize it in the format that they would like for you to capitalize on it on. Like if they did have someone out there doing that and it didn't go the way they want, you would never hear about it. And if he ever talked about it, he'd lose everything. That's just how they do it.
I recall reading the book where Tom and his son get approached by this hippie kind of guy, big 6'4" hippie kind of guy. He says, I just want to go out in the field and I just want to meditate. And Tom said, this guy is absolutely insane. Absolutely not. Get off my land. And the son says, Dad, let's entertain it. And so this is where we get one of the occurrences of the predator-like creature. All right. The guy goes out there in the field and he sits down, he starts humming. Dad and son are just laughing like, oh God, can't wait to see what happens from this. And out of nowhere, crashing through the trees, is some sort of what they call 8 to 10 foot tall creature. It's never a midget. I want to say that. It's never a little fat thing. It's always a giant, scary monster, right? It's never like a Ewok running out towards you. So here comes this thing, the light's bending on it, and it goes and it screams in this guy's face. He's terrified. He's throwing himself all over the ground. The father and son run out there to get him. The man won't even get off the father. And so that's the end of that tale. And so, occurrences like that, is that an alien that did that? I don't think so.
The thing that crawled out of the tunnel of light that could only be seen with, with the modern night optic devices. The modern night vision.
Yep. Cal Kelleher's sitting there saying there's something crawling out of a hole. It's on hands and knees. It stood up and it's gone.
There's something to that too, man. If you use night vision cameras like the digital ones, or even some of the night vision equipment that's digital, versus the ones that just spin it up analog style and intensify with tubes, you see way more things with the tubes. Like the night sky just wandered around. It's like, this is something different.
Well, and some of the older school technology, like what I had when I was in the Marine Corps, we had the black and green is all the only colors you could have. You would see shadows and shapes in there. and you would just think that, you know, it's eye fatigue. No one ever said anything that they saw, but for us, it's just eye fatigue.
Yeah, nobody wants to be looked at as crazy. Yeah,
Oh,
nobody. No,
yeah.
you don't say those things.
There's
Yeah, I saw a
plenty of
shadow
crazy.
guy walking across that field. No, you didn't. You're just tired.
No, you didn't. That was just a Haji. He's chasing a sheep. You know, one of the things that I found interesting is that with night vision, my night vision that I have on my helmet versus the digital psionics camera that we use, the quality is much better. I will say that with a color night vision, but you don't capture a spookiness kind of feel when you look through regular night vision. It just looks different. I don't know what it is, but it just plays with your head a little bit differently.
Yeah.
Which was the ones that I had to go with, Dave?
Yeah, the one you were looking at was PVS 14 Gen 3.
Right.
Green and black though. I don't like white phosphorus. It's not me. It's too bright. I don't like that. I like the green. I don't know. Maybe I just don't want to do anything new.
So Rick, I'm interested. So you said that like it was put down to fatigue or whatever, but you'd see things through these.
So we had guys in Iraq that would see what the Iraqis called were jinn. I remember we I don't like talking about this stuff. But we were at our forward operating base, Fob Omar. It used to be a old mortuary that we took over. Great place to sleep. And so we relieve our guys on post. I don't know what operation we had been on, but everyone had been up for about 24 to 48 hours, going into 72 hours. You know, you try to relieve each squad at a time so we can take a cat nap here and there, but there's always something to do. And I remember we go to relieve our guys that are on post, and as we're walking up to relieve them, because the way it worked for us is because you have your own independent internal and security when you're out away from a big major base. So you run your own convoys, you run your own foot patrols, and you also stand your own post. So it was this turn for us to stand post, and we go and relieve our guys, and they come down screaming. We just saw something with green glowing eyes run into the fob, and now it's over there where the helicopter parks. Like, okay, great. Thanks for letting me know. How long has he been awake for? You know,
That's a valid question.
Yeah. So I mean, and we had guys say that they saw shapes and images and ghosts and all kinds of stuff like that. But for me, whenever I'd use it, it's just hard to tell what is shadow and what is person in shadow. Your depth perception is horrible. It's actually how I broke my ankle in Iraq. So your depth perception is horrible. But yeah, I mean, white phosphorus I like a lot more because I can see a lot more. I like it a lot more. Yeah.
I don't like it. I don't like it I feel like it burns my eyes. I have keratoconus, so it probably does actually like wash out and burn my eyes. And I don't know. Green is the comfort and homey. I feel like, all right, everything's going to be okay. The white, I'm like, nah, this is too much. I don't like this.
I'll tell you, there's nothing creepier than going through a town where there's no electricity. You just hear generators running at night and the random people talking, or a scream or a gunshot or a series of gunshots or an explosion, and you're walking through abandoned, parts of town or abandoned
it's like Detroit
buildings. Yeah. And it's creepy. It's absolutely creepy. I would say that parts of Iraq, like in Fallujah where we were, would probably be like a paranormal ghost hunter's dream if you could get out there and not die, because there's some weird crap that's always reported there. The locals always talk about weird crap. Units that are rotating in and out have always experienced something like that. So that was an interesting time.
Well, there's only been warfare, trauma, and occultism in that neck of the woods since man left the cradle of Eden. You know what I mean? Like there's some history there. Yeah, it's something to think. I actually, so back to the Skinwalker book to jump around there a bit. I read that book after I heard David Paulides recommend it. He's like, before you read any of my missing 411 books, you need to read that book, then read my books. He said, because it's very close, if not the same. Something's going on. Yeah, I agree. The show leaves out a lot of the meat that's in the book, but even then, like, so Travis Taylor, who's an intelligence asset, 100%, and he's connected to all the biggest, most important people, and he's a brilliant man. But it's undeniable he's a brilliant person. Did you see the little interview, the one George Knapp did for his TV station? It was like, I think, 4 parts. It was very underrated, did not make headlines. I'm surprised no one in the UFO community really didn't just push it and take excerpts. But he's talking about what's going out there, and then goes off about things following him to his house, weird cloud phenomenon, chickens dying, illness, the radiation poisoning he got, and things he had to deal with his own life, things his kids did, phenomenon in the house that started to happen. And then when he would travel, it would follow him.
Yeah, it's totally aliens.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, because they have nothing better to do.
Underground aliens do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, what is it? Was it the Brazilian tribe that was showing a picture of a modern alien? What we say, and they say, "Oh, those are the ant people. They live underground. They come out at night and take you." You got to stay away from them.
Yeah, there is a real correlation there for whatever it is that's underground, and then things that are seen above ground.
Yes.
I can't remember what it was. I've spoken to him a few times. Super cool guy. He's on YouTube. His channel's called Wartime Stories, and he's a fellow Marine. And he did a coverage of the reptilians that were being seen by our USGIs in Vietnam. And they always come in and out of caves. And as you know, I'm a caver. I belong to an archaeological group, and we go in and out of caves. And it's cool, but it's always creepy because you never freaking know what you're going to walk into. But there is something there with the human civilization, and always pointing to something's coming out of caves. Something, monsters, demons, whatever. Something's always in the underground, right? And what I find fascinating about what's going on with Skinwalker Ranch is that they cannot figure out, with all the technology in the world, what is just below them that's making all this disturbance and also creating poltergeists. And one thing that I find very funny that my wife and I were talking about is this. So, the triangle, right? The triangle that always causes all the problems out there. Okay. So triangles. The triangle or power cone is placed on the ground and can be of different sizes and shapes. It is used to confine the demonic force that is conjured up during the satanic rituals. This is one of my guidebooks to a lot of these things, wrote by Tom Wedge. Good luck finding this book anymore. It's called The Satan Hunter.
It looks pretty old.
Yeah, he's a former detective that was probably one of the leading experts in satanic ritual abuse and murders. He's one of the guys that Russ Dizdar, when writing the book The Black Awakening, relates a lot of Tom Wedge's information in his book. And so the spiral symbols that are out there, the triangle that's out there, when you step outside into the occult world, these symbols all have meaning. They all have a conjuring meaning to them. And I think it's funny that right there where they have all the problems, all the weird stuff is happening, it's also in a triangle. So what is it? Is it aliens that can materialize itself out of nowhere, that can fly straight into the mesa and not explode upon, entrance? Or is it something else and you just don't want to say it?
It's probably they just don't want to say it.
Yeah,
it's curiosity.
What would it do? What do you think, Ollie? What would it do if they said, listen, pretty sure this ain't aliens anymore?
I don't know what they could do. I mean, again, like we said before, I think the majority of the population wouldn't give a shit. I think the UFO community would probably turn upside down. You might get a hell of a lot more people going to church. I would hope you would anyway. I don't know, because I have to ask myself that. Because, Rekka, don't get me wrong, I've been on the edge of this for so long now, which is why I like speaking to people like yourself. But I lean more towards that way. I would never say I've been an atheist, but I've never been somebody who really believed in anything until recent days. And now well, one, I've got 2 little boys, I've got a wife, and it just feels like the world's just imploding on itself. Never mind the alien stuff, but it just feels, everything just feels so paranormal, because there's nothing normal about this world that we live in. So that if it all came out, I think there would be a small community that would be listening to it. But I think there would be still a community that just wanted to do the latest TikTok on it.
Yeah.
And that's the sad thing.
Yeah, I believe if they came out and they started saying all the other things that were happening, besides just the strange stuff that they're trying to film in these one certain areas, that you would give more leeway for the average person to say, well, why do aliens make poltergeist-like activity? Why do aliens haunt you? How can aliens do that? I thought God didn't exist, right? And the more you start to chip away at that false notion that God didn't exist, and the more people become exposed to there is another world out there that is being hidden from you, more people would question, and more people would turn to religion. And from religion, more people would eventually turn to Jesus, because no other religion has answers to this. No other religion that's out there, man-made, has an explanation that dates back as far back as the Bible does in the greatest amount of detail. So it would defeat a lot of things for these people. And that's my opinion, my mindset in it. It would defeat a lot of things. And once again, the main thing to defeat is the stranglehold on people who refuse to believe what they can just see and what they can just feel and touch. Because what's going on out there at that ranch is more than just what they can see, feel, or touch. They can't even explain it with their own instruments. But yet, like you said, Dave, things are following them home. Right? Technology doesn't do that.
That's why the owner doesn't go out there. You know, and if he is going out there, it's on camera.
I mean, yeah, what's it been owned? It's been owned now by 2 billionaires.
Well,
Yeah.
The second guy's not a billionaire. He would like to be, but
Well,
he's not there. Yeah.
He might be close. He's got more money than me.
He's closer than me. Yeah.
Well, the government spent $23 million on that ranch. So, you know, I think that the fact that the government completely cordoned that place off for what, about 15, 20 years before it was handed over to the new owners, we still don't know much of what happened there. It's all tied up in NDAs. But whatever was happening there, those guys will tell you, and I've talked to a few of them. I know some people who know them. They'll tell you that it was scary what was going on out there. Not scary as in we're seeing a 1.6 gigahertz, you know, freaking signal. It was the encounters that were happening were horrifying. So why not talk about it? Why not elucidate on that?
I think the reason is, and this is just a personal opinion, one, I think the phenomenon there isn't unique. I think it's unbelievably widespread. I think it is an absence of people and distractions which allow you to notice it. I think there's some probably geological formations that emphasize it, but if they were narrowed down, like if they were honest about the science they've done, and they're like, oh, this is actually a common reoccurring form, like it's everywhere.
There's a ranch that's in Colorado. They call it the Skinwalker Ranch of Colorado, where there has been way more documented occurrences of paranormal events there. There's another one that was in Nevada that Dreamland, was it Dreamland?
and then there was Starlight Ranch in Arizona.
Mhm.
The one I know you're talking about in Colorado, it's in the valley where all the cattle mutilations. It's the valleys north of Taos, New Mexico, where the Taos hum takes place.
So
Yeah.
you said cattle mutilation. Glad you did. So I don't know how many people know this, but we have had a cattle mutilation and in our own back pasture. I was still working for the Department of Homeland Security when this happened. I get a text message from my neighbor. Hey, one of the cows is down in the back pasture. Something's weird. And immediately when he told me that, I knew exactly what was about to happen. Now, let me back this up. A few days previous, I have been listening to Hunt for Skinwalker Ranch, or Hunt for Skinwalker, the book. Been listening to it on Audible. We go visit some friends of ours in Missouri, and as me and my wife are coming back down, we're listening to this book, and she just has like this bad omen like feeling about listening to this book, and I'm just totally into it. I tend to haphazardly ignore stuff like that. I'm like, this is super cool. I just want to listen to it. And we get home that night, laying down in bed, and it's either her or I, or we both said it to each other, like, how crazy would it be if we woke up to a cattle mutilation? Okay. I go to work the next day. At about 4 or 5, I get a text message. There's a cow down out in the pasture. And immediately, something just told me, I know exactly what just happened. Told my neighbor, don't touch it. Do not touch it. Don't move it. And so I tell my boss, hey, man, something's going on. Got to go home. Rush home. Change over because I'm in my police uniform. I change over. And then I get out to the back pasture, and there's the one steer in the herd of about 15 to 20. Now, this is about a 800-pound animal, and it's missing its sexual organs. It's missing its right ear, or excuse me, its left ear. It's missing its left ear, and around the ear. And I have pictures of all this I can send you guys. The picture, you can see where it looks like the hair was singed in a perfect circle all the way around it, all the way into the ear canal. All right, super gross looking, like someone just carved like this all the way around it. And it was completely esanguated, no blood. All right, so I immediately started doing my own little investigation. I'm looking for footprints. I'm looking for animal tracks. I grew up tracking animals, so I pretty much know what to look for with a predator. And in our areas, besides a coyote, a neighbor's dog, or the every once in a while mountain lion, nothing should have been able to take this steer down. So I'm looking, there's nothing. There's no abrasions, there's no claw marks, there's no attacks on the jugular, no attacks on the different legs of the animal that looks like it grabbed it and pulled it down. I've seen where bears do this. I've actually been in done other investigations on cattle mutilation that we cannot explain, where it looks like an animal grabbed them by the haunches and pulled them down. But nothing to that. Nothing. There wasn't even blood coming out of the nose of the animal. So there's no trauma that can be seen. It's just down. It's on the ground. It's missing its sexual organs. And they were taken out, obviously externally, but whatever was also internally attached to the body was also missing. So talk to some friends of mine. For one thing, I call a sheriff's department. Hey, this is what's going on. Wife and kids are freaked out. Can you guys just come and just document it for me? All I want is just a document. And so they sent a detective out there. Guy's a real douchebag. And as soon as he comes out there, he's, oh yeah, Silver Fox did that. I'm like, a silver fox? And, yep, Silver Fox did it. So, buddy, you mean to tell me it's something about the size of a cat took down this steer and killed it? Yet there's no blood anywhere. Nothing's broke. There's no puncture wounds. Nothing. It's scared it to death. Like, yep, that's what happens. Takes his gloves off and just walks away. I'm like, I can't freaking believe this. Like, dude, we've been in law enforcement for about the same amount of time. I'm not an idiot. Don't sit here and lie to me. And I immediately asked him, has this happened elsewhere? Because now this is cop talking to cop. Has this happened elsewhere? It's my family. It happened while we were home, or while they were home and I'm at work. If this was nefarious done by a person, you better freaking tell me, dude. or I'm going to go to the sheriff's office and I'm going to hem your ass up for not telling me. Because this turned into like an officer safety thing now. And just refused to answer any questions. So he walks off. We get our veterinarian to come out there, and he's a cattle veterinarian. He gives us our carcass evaluation. I have the information right up here in the safe. And he was probably the most blunt and honest out of the ufologists who've gone over this case with me. The Cattlemen's Association of America said they wanted nothing to do with it, which I thought that was weird. But my veterinarian said that whatever happened, it was esanguated, so there's no blood in it. There's no sign of distress with the animal. He didn't think this was some random flu that could have happened that panicked it and it fell to the ground, and a predatory animal came and just nibbled at all the soft parts, because he got up in there and it was disgusting. He's like, I can even see singe marks around the hair. And I said, well, Doc, what could do that? He said a laser knife could do that, but it takes a little power pack, and that takes some time, and you'd have to run a little generator. So, and we're trying to understand, like, how could somebody do this? It's not aliens. How could somebody do this? And so we walk out into the field where we think someone would have approached our field from. You couldn't find nothing, man. So my buddies that are ufologists tell me, well, you see an alien spacecraft. It can go right over the cow, and it'll have this force field that stops time or slows time down within its own self. And then this mechanical arm comes out and grabs it and does what it does and throws it back on the ground. And there's your answer. Like, I'm not satisfied with that answer. I'm not satisfied with it. I've done a tremendous amount of research into cattle mutilations because of this. And I think the average rancher is not satisfied. Now, Skinwalker Ranch has had reports where Tom said he saw a cow walk 5-10 feet away from him, turned around, turned back, cow's gone. It's an open field, right? Like a portal opened up and the thing just got swallowed. None of that, to me, is alien technology. I think that is all occultic.
How many ranchers report cattle mutilation that we know of? I imagine it's quite high.
Go ahead, Dave.
You muted, Dave.
I did that. I said it depends on who you ask. Everybody's numbers are different because, like he said, he called in. They don't want to talk about it. So it's who can actually you get to write it down, because nobody there's supposedly people like you should be like, right? Various federal agencies you would think would be tracking this. It should be a big deal. It's not. They don't want to track it. They don't want to keep up with it. Nobody wants to talk about it. Your best bet is like a sheriff in a rural cattle heavy country who actually cares. He'll probably have good records, but it'll all be written down.
I asked that because I've been told I've had a story through a friend of a friend's dad about a cattle mutilation, and it sounded very much like that, like clean. I don't know if he said anything about singe marks, but genitals missing, and like ears cut off, and I think the nose had gone as well.
What bizarre trophies.
Yeah. So in many of the cattle mutilations here in America, the blood being gone, parts of the face being gone, parts of the flesh just looks like it was peeled away, the sexual organs missing, an eyeball missing, the tongue missing. Like, when you go to the other side of the aisle, that's all the same sort of stuff that's used in satanic rituals. So that is what I lean towards. I will be yelled at by everyone who knows me. Could aliens possibly exist in another world in a galaxy far, far away? Sure. If that's what helps you sleep better tonight, sure. Vampires are real. Werewolves are real. Zombies are real. Loch Ness is real. Whatever. Sure. I won't be surprised when I wake up and I see it. However, what's going on here terrestrially with cattle mutilation, so on and so forth, I believe much of that is occultic because it's used for occultic practices. And there's a lot of symbolism that's involved in this. One of the cases where there was cattle mutilation, the triangle symbol was appearing all over this man's house. And, you know, he would come home and all of his groceries would be unpacked and they'd be in a triangle. He found cows that were dead and there were triangles cut into it. Do aliens just love triangles? Or can we finally start to say this has a more demonic feel to it? So that's kind of where I'm turning to.
It's fun. It's funny that we go down this path. So are you familiar with the white lady phenomenon? Those who see
Probably.
the white lady, like Bledsoe, and there's many others. They're fairly notable. And the white lady appears, and it's all like love and light, angel, but there's a hint of oddness to it. So if you're familiar with the Bledsoe case, like he just put out that book, I read it. He goes on to talk about that she gave him all these things to tell the people to warn the world. And then he doesn't tell anyone what they are. They're never talked about. And then he gets invited to like Bilderberg Group and some random dude from North Carolina is getting invited to these things. It's a very interesting phenomenon. And I don't know. It's something I've been tracking for like 3 years now. It's interesting. I was just curious if you're aware of it or heard of it.
No, I mean there's a strange phenomena in terms of poltergeist activity and ghost haunts where there's always a little girl. Whatever it is, always pretends to be a little girl. We firmly believe that is absolutely demonic. There was something. Let me try and find it. That was from Jacques Vallee. So Jacques Vallee said that there may well be an occult organization that uses the UFO phenomenon for its own ends, and it could reach into higher levels of the military or intelligence community. My concern is that a conversion to the belief in aliens may become a convenient lever for any group with strong ambition. And he wrote this in the 1970s.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So it's Forbidden Science too. I actually have that book. And he was a scientist through and through, was not a believer in Christ. I think because of these events that he researched, that much of it turned into that. And the 60s, 70s, and 80s was an interesting time. Even Carl Sagan, I believe, was involved in part of this.
Mm-hmm.
He wrote a book called Science as a Candle in the Dark, the demon-haunted world, Science as a Candle in the Dark. And in there, he just goes on a tirade about trying to denounce Christ in every way possible. Why Christ, though? Why not denounce everybody else?
It is curious how uncomfortable it makes people. It's the one topic you can't. I mean, in our chat and any conversation we have, it bothers people, and I have always why
We've lost people over it. You know.
Oh yeah.
They're just I'm out. You're talking about God. You're talking about Jesus. No, I'm going.
Oh, yeah. I promise you, because as a person who's done my own investigations into the occult and into human trafficking, stuff like that, that is a scary world to be meddling around in. These are some very well-connected people who are involved in stuff like this, and they don't like you meddling. They don't like you investigating. They don't like you going out to their ritual sites. I've documented a couple of their ritual sites, and there's a true, real threat there, unlike the alien phenomena where there isn't. There was a member of the U.S. Air Force. I want to say this was back in the 1980s. And I think it was Nevada, where him and his ranking officer for the night go out to do some sort of a patrol sweep or whatever of an area. And this is here in the United States on a military base. And the major is over here. The sergeant walks off over here to like take a leak or something. And all of a sudden it screams and screams. And the major's like, hey, what's going on? Did you step on a rattlesnake or whatever? And next thing you know is he comes out there and he sees the sergeant being drugged into a flying saucer with this tentacle-like apparage coming out of it, and poof, takes off. A few days later, they find the sergeant's body, sanguinated, no sexual organs, and it appeared as if the body was very beat up, and obviously animals were predating it. Why the sexual organs every time? I'm sorry, but I don't believe into the hypothesis, well, they need it for breeding. They don't need it. I don't believe that at all. I know there's a lot of Christians out there who they almost make a living off of talking about hybrids. They make a living almost of some of these very fantastical stories. And yet you can't prove almost 95% of what you just said. But yet what I do is I go through case files. I go through books and I go through case files, and I probably can't prove 90% of what I said.
Mhm.
But I believe that there's a way more serious physical bodily threat to what I do than to go out and to try and just summon a UFO like, some of these other guys do. And I think, honestly, because the two are tied. I think the two are absolutely tied together. Dark technology and black magic. I think it's tied together. I think that's why you'll never hear about that type of stuff that's missing in congressional reports. And if it wasn't that deep, why were the Nazis all about it? Like, the Nazis literally built almost most of their empire off of this. Let me see. Let me find my notes. Ariosophy, Theosophy, Anthroposophy, border science, pseudoscience, Volkish folk tales, supernatural, imaginary. From the 1890s to 1840s, they were consumed with occultism, paranormal research, and New Age Eastern mysticism, all to find the great Aryan link. And when our boys go over there and capture them, and we ask them, where'd you get all this information from to make this stuff that no one has any idea about, especially with metallurgy? What's one of the common phrases we've heard? Oh, the aliens told us.
Yeah. DNA, the discovery of DNA. He was shown visions. One of the key scientists in that was shown
the
visions.
vision.
Yeah. And it was explained to you how it works.
Yeah, look at Vervabel Castle. The SS Temple of Doom. The amount of human sacrifice that was involved in the SS, from cannibalism to sexual orgies to finding one of the things that Himmler did, which he was a warlock, if people don't understand that. He took 13 of the best looking SS officers and had all of them decapitated, put their heads on these pedestals, and then they all stood in the middle of the pedestals and did what's called sexual ritual magic in order to summon forces. Funny how Jack Parsons, L. Ron Hubbard, and a few others did the exact same sort of methodology. Now, I don't know that they were killing people, but they did the same sort of thing where we have Babylon working, where they were trying to summon the spirit of Babylon.
The interesting thing about that is they had to choose the appropriate location too. That's something that where it gets left out. People are like, I can't believe they were doing that. No, they didn't just do it anywhere. They had to do it at the right place, at the right time, and everything together. Like, it wasn't half-assed. It wasn't crazy people. It was highly intelligent people who had figured something out or somehow intuitively knew what to do.
Yeah. There's
and now we have JPL.
Yeah, there's a connection here, right? There's a connection here. If you're this advanced in robotics and in rocket scientists and all this other crap, right? If you're this advanced, why do you need to go and do a blood orgy? Or you're just a freak? And the origin of what they were doing goes all the way back to ancient Canaanite stuff, recorded in the Bible. So why the need to continuously go back that route? If God's not real and demons aren't real and Lucifer's not real, why do you feel the need to call yourself the Antichrist, to be involved in sexual ritualized magic and the blood orgies? Why? What's the point in it? And at that rate, that's what we're seeing now, I believe, is finally starting to be exposed with our elites. Bohemian Grove, the Epstein ordeal. Is Epstein alive or not? Even do you know that the FBI told Epstein's counselors, his law firm, who was in control of his state, that before they started to come in and document everything, they're allowed to come in and take certain things out
Yes, I'm aware.
of a crime scene. A
Did you
crime
know they
scene.
had to? Did you know they had to return most of the evidence they took from his mansion in New York? Because it was technically his brother's and not his.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why does Hillary Clinton's best friend, oh God, what was his name? He was in charge of the CIA for a bit. The two brothers, gosh, escapes me. But they had the mansion that had all the child effigies, the sexual child effigies. What were their names? Pizzagate.
Yeah. Podesta.
Yeah. Podesta. Yeah. So
Yeah.
Podesta in his home had a picture of children in a nighttime scenario, children naked running through tree lines as if they were being chased. Interesting enough.
Jamie Lee Curtis did an interview right before her career revived there, and behind her was a picture of a child in a see-through box who was bound, tied, and gagged.
Yeah.
As people had a party.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
art.
There's
It's art. It's art. We can't judge.
There's a wicked connection here to the elites, to occultism, to power control and technology. And I think, go ahead.
I was just going to say, you had most of the music industry that like worshipped Crowley. You had, I think it was the Beatles album that had Aleister Crowley just in the middle of the people that were on the cover. Like Bowie loved Aleister Crowley. Why did they all like this guy?
Ozzy Osbourne sung about him.
See, that's the thing, is I actually don't think the influence, so we're going on there, and I know we're getting off for those who watch this for aliens, sorry. But those, where I think, if evil has an influence in the arts, I don't think it's in metal. To some extent, yeah, peripheral, like the externality, maybe there's an effect there, sure. But I think with most of those people, it is genuinely tongue-in-cheek. It's ridiculous. Like, it's theater. You know who I think do believe it? Is all the pop stars.
Yeah,
Show me one pop star that doesn't end up looking like they are full-on perfect possession. Let's do this together and win glory.
You have a difference. You have a difference there, though, Dave. Is like with a lot of the heavy grunge metal, like what I used to listen to. You have not all, but you have some that do satanic theatrical acts.
Oh yeah, 100%.
All right, and it's just to shock and awe people. And there's a group of people that'll always go there and throw their money to them. Mm-hmm. But yet you never see them at these famous, at these famous mansion parties, walking the red carpets. They're little bitty bands, not very well known. And then you get Katy Perry. All right. Let's connect two things. God, if I could share a picture with you right now.
You can.
Let me see. So Katy Perry is seen riding a beast. Y'all recall this at a Super Bowl. She's riding a big red lion thing. And if you look at one of the first pages of the book Babylon Working, you will see the same thing. Let me see. So The Babylon working, part 1 of this is a picture of a beast being ridden by a woman holding a light. And then you go to Katy Perry riding a beast, all right, representing as Babylon, the whore Babylon, and being surrounded by red and fire and light. And she's also the one who's always doing the triangles over her eyes. For some people in the comment section right now who don't think that symbols have anything to do with it, my friend, do your research. Symbols are all over the place for this very specific reason. Is to give ammunition to Satan and everything that he does. And Katy Perry, who was the other one? She was a rapper. God, I don't know any of these people.
There's several of them.
Rihanna.
Rihanna.
Yeah, Rihanna was one of them. Hey, Justin Bieber was potentially
he was raped by P. Diddy.
Yeah, was potentially a victim of something like this. And his child that he was having with the other singer Hispanic girl, supposedly the story goes that she was brought to the back, they removed the child in an abortion, and then they ritualistically killed it and then ate it in front of him. And he could never say anything about it.
That's right. I've never heard that.
Katy Perry, I used to have the audio clip of this, but you can find it. It's on the internet. Katy Perry was on a French radio show talking about how in France she would eat human meat at a very special location of a restaurant where a person who would die would donate themselves to be a delicacy of the day. And she would specifically fly over there when they were prepping that to eat it.
Did you hear that? This was several years ago. You can still find it up. It's difficult to pull up, but you can. The 17,500 aborted infants that were pulled out intact, and they were found in a shipping container in a San Diego shipping yard. And the only reason it was found was because whatever conglomerate based out of Panama that was formed out of Tripoli that was moved through the city of London that was paying the bills, like the expiration date on the card went out, so they missed them. They're like, oh, we're going to auction it and sell it. And they did, and they found all these things there. It's still refrigerated, still going. The power bill kept getting paid. They just whoever was managing the finances didn't switch that one thing. And so they found all that, and they're just it just never explained. It was just immediately swept under the rug.
Yeah. We know for a fact, because of James O'Keefe and the amazing work that he does with undercover journalism, that a lot of the things that came out of Planned Parenthood, which is sponsored by the Satanic Church, if anyone's interested, that a lot of that was done. Those children that were then murdered were then taken and sent to China. Many of them sent to China to be eaten. Now, there's talking about this stuff is upsetting, but they had something called baby head soup, which was one of them, where they would take the children and they'd put them in gold foil and bake them and put them in the soup and eat them, and supposedly it would restore vitality. All right. If that's not bad enough for you, then Sandra Bullock goes on to talk about how she gets facial treatments every month where she uses adrenochrome, and she rolls adrenochrome into her face with a little roller with the spikes on it that women use. And she does that every month to maintain her beauty. Why blood? Why the consumption of humans? I thought we had all these medical, technological things that were going on, but yet we keep going further and further, slipping further and further back into complete debauchery. And not saying that it's fascinating, but there's so much of this information out there, like that it's hard to just ignore. It's hard to ignore that when you have stuff like Eyes Wide Shut comes out.
That's one's rough.
That's a rough one, right? Yeah, most of the people involved in that are also involved in your military industrial complex.
The genius of that casting, the genius of the shooting, like we'll never know what those 23 minutes that got removed are, but we can guess, right? We can guess. I think the ending of that movie is telling, because when Tom Cruise's character walks in and he sees the two old men that are being escorted by the butler, right, and then he goes in behind them. At the end of the movie, you see that same parallel, that there's a butler following around two old men, and the two old men walk away, like they followed that guy's daughter around the thing. And that's when they look at each other and he's like, so what do we do now? And she's like, let's fuck, or whatever. That implies she was at the meeting, right? Like she was at this ritual, and they're paying a price to be there, for him to now be in. Like the price has to be paid. Now, when you look at Nicole Kidman's like father and family and who they are and their connections, you couldn't have picked someone better to be involved in the occult, trying to bring in the Tom Cruise character, the closeted homosexual, like the encounter he has with the bell boy at the desk, like when they were going back asking if anyone was at a room. That is apparently a mirrored shot from some famous 70s gay porno that dude just had him keep redoing until they got it as close to it as possible.
Stanley Kubrick,
It was brilliant.
he definitely knew some stuff. 100. I mean, The Shining, and that is a mind fuck to watch. It really is. It's crazy. It's a crazy film. It's not just a horror film. It's one of those films that just makes you think. I mean, I wouldn't say I'm 100%, but I would say I'm at least 95% that Kubrick had something to do with the moon landing.
Oh, you think he faked it?
I don't know if he faked it. I think he had something to do with it.
I think
maybe he did a backup.
I think the images we saw were ones he created. Whether we've been there or not is a different discussion, but the images shown in broadcast, I don't believe are real. I believe that they didn't think they could get through the Van Allen radiation belt, or they thought the film wouldn't survive, or they thought transmission would be too sketchy. We have to go ahead and have this ready, right? We have to win by propaganda.
It's that everything he seems to do in a film, he does for a reason, and it's a kind of like a selfishness that he brings into his films, when he wants to show us something. And that scene where is it Tommy? I think it's Tommy, the little boy, and he's got the NASA jumper on, and the carpet it's even the shape of the landing pad, the takeoff pad.
Mm-hmm. Custom carpet.
Yeah, and then you've got room 237, which they at the time they thought that was the distance from the moon.
Yeah, I mean, just going like just focusing on his work on Eyes Wide Shut and the occult premise that lays out. If you look at that, like if you're going to look at a movie that you want to get someone's head thinking about these things, or to like spark a conversation, that's a good one. And what is the one with Johnny Depp? The Nine Gates, I think is what it's called. Ninth Gate is a fantastic one to get someone thinking about. Yeah, the rituals and all the old people and that flesh and their orgy and their worship, and 100% that's going on. 100%. There was a chick used to have a YouTube thing. She was like a escort or call girl or whatever. Redhead Redemption, I think is what her name was. Paige. She was like a porn star, or like a, what was it? She had a apprentice position or co-op position or something at some major trading house, and then she got into porn because it was easy money and she was attractive, and then she went from doing like call girl stuff somewhere in between, and she went to some Hollywood parties, like low level ones, but there's just stuff she describes there. It's just like, what the hell are you people all out here doing?
Yeah, if you go to Vice's YouTube channel, you can actually witness, or you can watch two witnesses who, one guy belongs to a hotel. He was a hotel manager in New York. And the elite would come and buy this place out for like 2 or 3 days. And he said the stuff that would go on would terrify you, would terrify the average normal person, is what they do to other people at these type of, and it's all a big sexual orgy, blood-filled sort of thing. And then another guy that works a super yacht, one of those $1 billion super yachts. And he said the exact same thing. So we seem to have a connection here with these wealthy elite people, And they all seem to be doing the same thing. And yet these are also the same people who are typically in charge of the states of government, military, the industrial complexes. Should we not be worried when they start to tell us things? Like, hold on, I don't think that you qualify to tell me to start thinking rationally. The global warming is hurting us flying around in your G7 aircraft. So when they come out and they talk to us about aliens, I just kind of go, I know all the really weird, sick stuff you guys are into, and I just don't think it's aliens for some reason.
When you say that, the first thing that comes to my mind is the former head of nuclear waste for the United States, the cross-dressing puppy play advocate, kleptomaniac, that somehow got through some of the most rigorous security check backgrounds ever to be cleared to go to these sites. You know what I mean? And to know where they are and what's there. Those are the real secrets. That guy, the guy in the red high heels and the dress with the shaved bald head, and he's got a guy on a leash that he walked into the one who's stealing women's lingerie from the airport. We're going to give him one of the highest security clearances in the nation. Awesome. Yep. Awesome. No, I'm sure everything's working out fine. Everything's fine. It's trouble, man. Yeah. It's trouble. Yeah. The corruption and devious, the degeneration is so prevalent.
Yep. And these are the same people who are anti-Christ in their actions, 100%. Outwardly in their expression, the way that they run governments. They don't want you to have a home. They want you to have nothing and love it. They want you to eat bugs. They want you to be demasculated. They want your kids to be transsexuals. They just want love. They want you to love everybody and love what they're doing to you.
They want you to cut your children's genitalia off. Isn't that curious?
Yeah. Look, I'm going to read a quote from Jacques Vallee again, just because we went off on a tangent, but I meant to bring this up. So he said, I think the stage is set for the appearance of new faiths centered on UFO belief. To a greater degree than all phenomena modern science is confronting, the UFO can inspire awe, the sense of the smallness of man, and an idea of the possibility of contact with the cosmic. The religions we have briefly surveyed began with the miraculous experiences of one person, but today there are thousands for contact is based on intimate conviction drawn from what they regard as a personal contact with UFOs and their occupants. So, last time you guys were on, I believe it was yesterday, I left a message in the comment section about Avi Loeb. Avi Loeb is the guy who his little foundation found Oumuamua.
Yeah.
And and then out of nowhere, there's an alien mothership in our solar system, or whatever. I interviewed that guy, and it was by far my most unfavorite interview I've ever done. Ever. And so to move along with this, I asked him about alien abductions. And he said, figment of people's imagination. They're just imagining stuff. Nothing's happening to them. I'm like, there's tens of thousands of accounts of this. Tens of thousands. But at the same time, there's probably 1 million or more accounts of people seeing Bigfoot. Nobody believes that. I absolutely believe Bigfoot's real. Or someone's walking around in giant shoes. One of those two things are happening. But for the science, I think that you have guys like Avi Loeb, and then you have guys like God, what was his name? Other physicists, astrophysicists that are out there, and their job is to disinterest you in this discussion. Their job is to hone you in on space and aliens, and from there to take away anything that is of God. All right. You obviously have some people out there who are starting to find a difference in that opinion, and they're connecting the two now. But eventually, I think people are going to wake up to the notion that there's an obvious connection here between black ops, black magic, and someone is funding both of these currently. And when the world finds out that that someone is Satan, it's probably going to be too late. Like, because that point in time, now we're going to have the Antichrist. Because that's what this all leads to. No matter what, it leads to the Antichrist. I don't care what happens today, tomorrow, next year. It always leads to the Antichrist.
Do you think that's because it's played its cards right? You know, it's got people to not believe, to almost hate religion, and now it's everything's just prepped.
Well, I grew up hating religion, and then while my senior year in high school till the time I got out of the Marine Corps, I was a pagan. Believed in Odinism because I was an idiot. A lot of people who hate religion and a lot of people who hate God and they blame God for everything, or who make fun of God, typically are hurt somewhere down in their heart. They have no inwardly way to heal that wound, so outwardly it's expressed with negativity towards Christ, and that can take all different sorts of shapes and forms. And that's I think many people are going to come to realize, like, the aliens aren't going to be here to save your soul or to heal you from whatever happened that was horrific in your past. You won't get redemption from that. You need to seek repentance to Christ, period. Because if you don't choose that route, Satan has a whole list of things that he can trick you with. And one of the greatest things that I think is going to happen to mankind that'll lead to the Antichrist is that you're going to have this, some people say it's like blue beam, where there's going to be the mile-wide craft in the sky. And, oh yeah, by the way, we used to be you. We're that advanced civilization that took off, and now we've returned, and we've got our alien space brothers with us. Look, we even got our own Jesus. I mean, never in my life would I say that's a possibility. I'll say now it's a possibility, because there's enough dumb people in the world to believe it. People don't do their research. Well, yeah. I'll just Google it. Oh, I saw this on Twitter. It's got to be true. Oh, this dude was talking about flat Earth. It's got to be true. Oh, this dude was talking about hollow Earth. It's got to be true. The moon's hollow. It's got to be true. What it comes down to is people are willing to be entertained at the risk of making it their own religion and their own view. And that's what's so dangerous about it. That's that temptation. You want to just keep on believing and believing. I call it the Alice falling down the rabbit hole effect. You just keep falling down the rabbit hole, and your beliefs get darker and darker and darker. And eventually you stray from the light. So, and I think we're seeing that right now. I mean, look at the liberals. Dave, right now you can tell me you're a woman, and in certain states.
I definitely am. 100%.
If I told you no in certain places, it's hate speech.
Hey man, I'll be honest. If I was facing some federal charges and I knew I wasn't getting out of there, I'm suddenly a woman.
I believe they're going to fix that. You know how strange it is when
That's a hell of a lot better time than being there with the other men. I got to be honest.
You know, it's strange. I've worked in the federal prison system. I worked for 4 of our prisons there, and when you have an inmate from the male side of the facility identifies as a female, oh, well, excuse us. Let's send you over here to the female side, because that's where you obviously belong, madam. And then about 2 months later, 2 or 3 inmates inside the female side are knocked up by said inmate who identified as being a male. Well, now what do we do?
See, I wasn't even going there with it. I was just, I don't have to worry about getting gang molested in the shower by a bunch of dudes. there's dark. We men are savages, and women are savage too. But
bro, I could
physically a man.
I could tell you some horror
chances.
stories.
I'm sure.
Horror stories. Yes, just stay out of prison, folks. That's a really good idea.
It's good rehabilitation. We're doing good work there.
Yeah.
They're coming out better.
Yeah. Why is it? Let me ask you guys this. Why is it all of a sudden within the last week or so we're seeing alien stories pop up all over the internet and news media? Aliens could live underground. Are UFOs demons? Like, we're seeing all this stuff pop up. Why now?
Dyson sphere.
The Dyson
being
sphere.
a big one.
I still think the biggest one they talked about is, what was the name of the mental affliction that suddenly people would start seeing other people as demons? And they're like, oh, it's just a mental illness. It's going around. Sorry, what? People maybe you've known a long time suddenly have pointy ears, sharp teeth, wide smile, wrinkled face. Eyes will change. They're still people too. Why is this news? It goes hand in hand with the rest of that, man. It's easier. They believe acceptance of alien will be easier than the truth of what it is. And they can't say the truth of what it is, because once they do, everybody runs to the other side. Because the one thing, if you've ever dealt with someone who's, and I'm sure you have, Wrecker, someone who's been under some kind of demonic influence or a severe haunting, things like that, when they get out of that, they're Christ 100%. I'm born again. It's real. Everything is real, right? Like, they have seen the evidence, and it's always the darker, heavier hand that shows itself. So you have to paint that narrative ahead of time, because you're going to lose them all, right?
Yeah, I mean, you have people who come across traumatic experiences, right, where an angel of light has appeared in their dreams or in their life, where they got a manifestation of Jesus talking to them, and they're born again. And I have never heard someone being born again into alien belief.
No, I've never heard of that. I've heard of many people being delivered out of horrible situations. They're like, it's all real. Everything is real. I was naive. This is foolishness. I'm done. I'm out. That's usually what you get.
I almost feel like we're going to get like the book When Childhood Ends moment here. We're going to get.
Same thing. Yeah, that's what that is a great reference. I believe.
Little Red Cookbook.
Yeah, that's what they're trying to frame it. They're trying to get out ahead of the narrative, because when we understand and see these things, the shadow people at your bed, the things that were holding you down and, tormenting you, and like the woman we had on and everything she had been through, like that. I don't think that's episode's dropped yet, has it?
That episode hasn't. It
Fringe.
hasn't. No, it's not.
Yeah.
But are you aware of Fringe?
Fringe?
Mm-mm.
So we spoke. Dave, you probably explain it better.
As I say, you should check her out. She's interesting. Solid mind, former detective, retired. Her husband's in law enforcement. It sounds like he's about ready to retire too. So she's got 20 years in. I think he's coming up on 30 in. Very normal people. Now they don't have anything left. She has dealt with some form of oppression, affliction, and or full-on abduction, spiritual and physical. And it was an incredible show, because I didn't get the vibe she's not pulling any wool. She believes what she says 100%.
And she says it's not aliens.
And I got to be honest, I kind of believe her too. It was a fantastic show. Everything she said, you just hear the truth ring behind it. Even as crazy as it is and is out there. But yeah, it's very interesting. She's a very interesting character. Yeah, it's going to be a great show. You should check her out. We can tell you where to find her. But
I wonder how many people out there have had a similar experience, have come to the realization that it's not little green men.
I don't know.
Well, you got to question. You got to question everything, right? Now it's hard to make people. It's hard to make people try and prove something that can't be proven physically right in front of you. But I've never met a person who had an experience with Christ where they didn't almost completely change their way of life, right? No one forced you to do this. No one forced you to repent. No one forced you to walk the straight and narrow path, to pick up your cross and follow after the Lord. I haven't heard that on the alien side. And when I do, it's guys like Stephen Greer. And they get all the media. They get all the super top secret information that, hey man, some of this information, like, you were never supposed to know. The government kills people over that, and you can have it, and you're just a heart surgeon or OR surgeon, and all of a sudden now you have like more clearance and head knowledge than like a CIA director. Sorry, I don't believe that.
Have you ever seen that picture, Rekka? I'll bring it up. Have you ever seen this picture of Stephen Greer? And who he's with?
Yeah. So you got Henry Diamond, Dr. Stephen Greer, Dr. Bruce Maccabee, George Lamb, Robert Bigelow, Linda Moulton Howe, Dr. Leo Sprinkle, Keith Thompson, Dr. John Mack, Lawrence Rockefeller, Dr. C.B. Scott Jones, Johnny Jones, Robert Teets. Behind the camera is Marie Bootsy Galbraith and Richard Farley.
Well, John Mack, Dr. John Mack was a leading clinical psychologist professor at Harvard. He's the one that gave us our standard form for investigating people who claim to be abducted by aliens, who was also a fellow of Avi Loeb. And Avi Loeb said John Mack was a disgrace. But yet, for 18 plus years, John Mack interviewed tens of thousands of people that he claimed, or they claimed, had alien abductions. And he had a whole system of how to like phase people out that were just lying. You know, just I'm just here to lie, right? I'm just here for my 5 minutes of fame. So for him to be in that picture, that's pretty interesting.
Hanging out with Rockefellers and Bigelow and Howell and Greer, all partying together at the private Rockefeller estate.
It's crazy, that picture. Nobody speaks about that picture.
No one brings it up to him either. That's never come up. I've never heard anyone interview any of those people and that come up. What was that like? Oh, it was dinner weekend. He flew us all out. We wanted to talk about aliens. I believe that. But the fact that we duck it.
Stephen Greer's never shied away from saying that he knows the Rockefellers,
or the Clintons. He's pals.
No, he's never shied away from that. But he's never said, "Oh, there was me, Linda, Bigelow, and we were all there." I don't think he's ever discussed that.
No.
Have you ever heard of the Bridgeport UFO?
That rings a bell.
Albert K. Bender, his story. So one of the interesting things is he was a leading ufologist, I believe. He had an encounter with the Men in Black. And the most notable thing about this encounter was that they floated through a wall. They all were black, not like, Men in Black, white shirt, dress tie, but they were all black figures with what appeared to be hats on and red glowing eyes, and were threatening them for investigating into, the paranormal phenomena. Why? For one thing, there's a correlation here. The black mass figure, also known as the Hat Man, is very, very well known in the paranormal field. 2, why is it that when you have these entities appear, they flow through walls, or they can just pull you through a wall or through a window to go into the crafts? Because none of that makes sense based on physics. And the best excuse that some of my friends who are UFO researchers can give me is, well, they just have technology we don't understand. Or it's a false memory. Now, we actually have a false memory government organization that researches false memory. But for that to just be the common excuse, like, why can you not just say this was demonic in nature?
Because they don't want it. Like they want what I've long thought the Men in Black were really there for was to build notoriety to the incidents, right? Because it's one thing, it's a crazy story. Then the Men in Black were there. Sorry, what? Got better. And now you got more things going into the zeitgeist of the public to be talked about. And they can't talk about it in these, pre-1945 bomb drop terms. Because after that, science became the religion of the West, right? Because if they start talking, well, man, it looked like a damn demon and it was threatening me and it was something crazy and it was huge and it just floated through the wall, people are going to take that from a spiritual context. They don't want to do anything that would credit people to have faith to be able to protect themselves. So, yep.
Cheers, come 333. Jesus, that's I see that number all the time. Yeah, there's something about the Men in Black as well. The whole name behind it, the Men in Black. These two gentlemen will turn up at your door, and there's something quite off about them. They seem human, but they seem different. What? Possessed?
Yeah, one of the accounts was from an elderly woman at a store. Men in Black appeared, and I believe this was during the time when the Mothman stuff was going on. And they appeared in this one store, talked to this lady, and one of them had picked up like a pencil and was just fascinated by a pencil. Now, that could either be an act to fool you off, and I'll say a few things. I have no idea what the Men in Black are, but I know that anything that floats through your room and is black and is menacing is not an alien. That's demonic, period. Many people watching us right now, to include myself, I'm sure, have had an experience where you woke up to a giant black menacing mass in your room.
Yes.
Okay.
That's
a demon. That is a demon. All right. Demons are real. Demons believe in you.
More like my mother-in-law.
Well, hey, I've seen one look like my grandmother, and it
No,
was terrifying. No. I'm actually not joking. My wife knows this story. It was actually looked identical to my grandmother, but it was menacing, right? And I swear I could have thrown a bottle at it and hit it. That is demonic. Okay, not demonic in nature. That is demonic. All right.
Mm-hmm.
For physical men, and they're always white men. They're never black or Asian or Hispanic or Inuit. They're always white men. They walk up and they're wearing physical clothes. You can hear their footsteps. They arrive in a vehicle, and then they have this weird facial structure. And then they ask very weird questions, or they're very threatening with their remarks. Well, one of the things that's also interesting with that is at that point in time was when the CIA was getting really involved into cosmetics, having wearing masks, stuff like that, so that you could disguise yourself. And for me, knowing what I know, working for the government, and knowing friends of mine who do certain things, I would not be shocked to have some person with a poorly made cosmetic mask come up and ask you a bunch of questions, and have one of their friends say, "Oh, look, I'll just act like a dumbass the whole time, and that'll really throw them off." Because cops do that. I know cops who do that. I've been on knock and talks with people, and my partner will act like a retard the whole time, because it tones everything down. It de-escalates everything. It throws the person off, especially when we're out in the hood and you have like the one funny cop and then the one serious cop. I was always a serious cop. You know, the one funny guy, the one serious guy. It de-escalates everything. It throws stuff off. And then it makes you go question like, well, I don't know what just happened. This was a really weird occurrence.
Mm-hmm.
Like the government does stuff like that all the time. Does it overseas all the time. So when you hear of Men in Black, the physical embodiment, people walking up, I absolutely believe that's a person. I don't think it's a hybrid. I don't believe it's an alien hybrid. I don't know that. I can't prove that. But just me knowing what I know, that's most likely just one dude acting up and the other guy asking the questions. But that's not really common with those encounters. Most of the time, those encounters are very menacing, and they're very meticulous about the questions that they ask. Did you see this at this time? Yes. No, you didn't. Well, yeah, I did see it. No, you didn't see that. Because I've read some interviews, and I'll say this: we know more about aliens from Zeta Reticuli than we do about Men in Black appearances here on Earth.
Yeah.
So that's like a whole field of questions there, where, like, even in that sense, they're there to cover something up. And I believe what they're covering up has a lot to do with forces that are yoked up with Satan. So they're probably not there on our best behalf, right? These people monitor you, they harass you. I mean, that's what my mind is now.
I'm with you. I also think that there's a huge swath out there of people who have really bad dreams and they feel threatened by their dream and they let things go. It's one thing to have something materialize to your wall or be talked to physically, but it's another thing to go on a course of a couple weeks of some really bad nightmares. You're like, I'm going to leave that alone. I'm done with that now. I think that is something that's overlooked. Like, nobody talks about it. Nobody talk about what is possible or what could be possible, when it comes to dreams and psychological operations. I mean, whether it's exposure to various types of electromagnetic radiation, or, I mean, let's be honest, like if you read Nancy Jacobson, the government has been working on psychedelics augmenting and different compounds augmenting already sensitive people's abilities of perception and projection and what they could put into someone's head. Uri Geller got paid a lot of money to go to a peace summit to put a thought in someone's head.
Well,
the
study of parapsychology has been around since the 1920s by governmental research. The Soviet Union was super big into it. They had what they called the Red Witch. And they believed, and the CIA believed this, that they had a woman that could literally think of you and stop your heart and die. And to an extent, Annie Jacobson writes about this, and I think Pentagon's Brain or Project Operation Paperclip, I think. Anyways, they believed this woman was real. All right. And we had guys at Fort Detrick, Maryland, the same place where we brought in some of the most notorious Nazi murderers. I mean, people who killed millions of people, Nazi scientists that were still creating weapons and still experimenting on people, to include over 7,000 U.S. troops and Canadians. I mean, that's one of the pieces where we get MK Ultra from, some of the stuff that happened there. That whole psychological operation, to this day, I think is the most diabolical thing that America has ever been involved with, happened at Fort Detrick, Maryland, and what those scientists were involved in. It is the most diabolical thing ever. They created a substance, it's not very well known, but they created a substance that can be poured into the city water, and then it evaporates, or as it's consumed, it causes a state of psychosis for the entire civilian population who comes in contact with it. I mean, that's Batman Beyond Scarecrow.
Yeah.
Right. Where do you think they get this? They get this stuff from, right? Because a lot of it's real. It's just so fantastical. You never think that, no one ever created stuff like that. Oh, yeah, we did. Oh, we created a lot worse stuff than that. The study into what they call psycho weapons is intense. It's intense what we can do.
Yeah, that's where I think this conversation that's not held because no one was, it's just a nightmare, man. I don't want to talk about it anymore. That's curious. Tell me about it. Did you see their face? Could you see your hands? Did you see their hands? Yeah. It's not sounding like a dream anymore.
You know how many times people have showed up and been killed by Capitol Police in DC because they heard a person's voice in their head go and do something. At least 3 or 4 people while I was still serving the government, this had happened to at the Capitol. And now Congress is talking about the same weapons that's being used. And I'll connect this real quick. You're going to love this. That the Russians are using in Cuba.
Mhm.
All right. There's a, hold on. I gotta bring up this guy's name who created these weapons. Okay. Let me see. Michael Aquino. Michael Aquino was a colonel in the United States Army, and he is considered to be the father of many of the weapons, special operations, by the way, of many of the weapons that are used today that involve sound waves, vibrations, that are, and this was created also like during the same time as, what was it? Korea, Vietnam time frame. And he was a member of the Temple of Set. He was a satanic priest, like while active duty, a satanic priest.
Yeah.
And this was the same guy involved in some of our most advanced weapons. Once again, do we see this strange connection here?
Wasn't he also involved in the undertakings of the Presidio in San Francisco with the alleged satanic panic?
Yeah, they blame that a lot on him.
Well, yeah, we had a friend of ours. She was a friend of the show. I consider her still a friend of the show. She stopped her podcast and other things. Remember that, Ollie?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. And she went deep into him. Deep. Is one of the best summations of the satanic panic. And she's going through like police reports, the evidence. The kids went to his house, but he lived next door. Yep. Technically, he owned both buildings, but had it rented to another company. And that company, like, it was all legalese. She was picking people out, and the government basically just made it all go away. They made it all go away because he was their chief psychological operator. Like, we need this guy. And he has just operated rampantly. Yeah, just crazy, crazy stuff. Horrible things involved.
Yeah. He wasn't a born again believer in aliens. He devoted his life to Satanism.
100%.
And he was one of the highest ranking members of our intelligence apparatus in creating. I mean, I don't know if he worked at ARPA. He may have worked at ARPA, but he was involved in crap like that. So, yeah. I mean, this is the not culmination, but this is the bulk of the research that we're doing right now, is to try and to pinpoint why is it that you can almost not separate black ops and black magic. The UFO that was found by the Marine from 27 or 25 out in the Philippines, right? That Greer had. Well, what was it collecting? Coconuts? No, people.
Yeah. People to give like I remember him saying that they wanted people. His explanation was really sketchy too. Like when he went into that, and I was like, what part of this do you believe, or what part did you just feel like now I have to say this? Because when he's talking about, well,
stuff, did he? He said weapons.
That's what he thought it was, weapons. And I think he was right, but he was wrong. He was right even though he was wrong. He thought they're cases of rifles. They're probably people. And when you look into it in a little bit of research, especially in the history of what the government's able to do and what they've been working towards, and you hear him give that explanation, I genuinely believed a bunch of it. That, they want people that aren't exposed to, modern technology or different ways of thinking. They want a different mindset. I don't think that's true. I think they want people that can easily disappear. Zones of conflict, people disappear all the time. Whole towns of people can disappear and no one questions it. Oh, they just moved because they didn't want to get in the conflict. Sure, they did.
So,
yeah.
So at a period of time over the last year, we've had some shocking things come up. One was the UFO conference stuff that Greer did and all the information that came out from that. Simultaneously with that was the human trafficking information. And then Ghislaine Maxwell is sentenced, imprisoned, and we've heard nothing about that.
Allegedly. She's allegedly in prison.
Oh, she's being taken care of. She's like Hillary. She knows where the skeletons are.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Dude, she has an actual clearance to drive submarines of multiple grades. Like you can, where do you even get that?
So, I mean, that's a problem. But while all that was starting to be exposed, there was also a revival happening across America. That was I kind of questioned where it was going and what was happening with it. I'm all for shouting the name of Jesus in a big crowd of people and bringing people back to the cross, but I also am a student of observation, and I will sit back and I will observe activities going on and root it out. But while all that was being exposed, which was very limited, by the way, then now we're back into wars in Israel, war in Ukraine, war in Gaza. The petrodollar's down. Everything's about Biden. Everything's about Trump. We're starting to have protests here in America again. So all the other stuff that leads to the satanic rituals, we'll just forget about that. Stay focused on politics. Oh, and aliens could be living underground. It's a distraction. Yeah, 100%. It is all a distraction. That's what I believe.
I think the movement is still there. I talk to people, and the more people I talk to, the more people that were of faith and walked away are walking back. And it's just too much wrong, man. Look at this world. It's too much wrong. This isn't, something's off. You know, and most of the people I see anyway, they return to their faith. Or they find
that's something that Lee said what made him start to believe in it when he saw that there's so much evil in the world. There's got to be a good.
Yeah.
There's got to be.
But back to the people in the UFOs or whatever they were, they're getting jacked. I think they take those people, plug them in with modern chemistry so they can talk to the things beyond the veil. And the chemicals burn those people out. I don't think anything comes back.
Me and Tim Alberino, floating on a ferry, a very questionable ferry down the Amazon River, smoking cigars. Just when it's a 20-hour drive down the Amazon, you got nothing but just topics. And so we're talking about what we're talking about right now. All the stuff Greer came out with, these UFOs that were being seen, that looks like it's been a recreated craft, that it's shoveling people into it. Where could they be going with that? And then we hear these reports of people are off-world on Mars or on the moon. And all right, so people have heard the jump gate stuff, right?
Yes.
I don't believe it.
No, I don't either.
I don't believe it. I think some people really love Stargate and are really gullible. On the adverse side of that, there is a spiritual way of doing this. Okay. You can scry, you can send your spirit out. I mean, obviously they do it with even with the military right now in parapsychology research. But to have something off world, if you could recreate a vessel, a vehicle that can operate the same way a UFO can, and let's say the Earth isn't flat and all this other stuff, and it can get off the Earth and it can go to Mars and it can land and it can survive there, then could that be where people are going? And they're being used for forced labor. And
maybe.
Yeah. And we're throwing around these conversations like, because what other explanations are there? Or are they going underground into the sea?
When I look at a lot of tunnels.
Yeah. When I look at it, I think there's definitely things underground. Military and government bases. Some are hidden in plain sight. Some are truly secret. Whatever. With these people, if you're taking it from a third world, right? You're taking it from conflict zones. They're not going to be noticed. So they're just gone. All right. A primitive mindset to some extent, not me being a jerk, but you know what I mean? Not connected with certain things. allows for more openness. And I know for a fact that there are compounds that allow your temporary antenna in your psyche to be able to connect to things on the other side. The problem is you can't run that indefinitely. It will destroy the person. So that's why they go through these things. Like same thing, like why are they pumping, why is breaking into dimensions a lab near me? That was a big deal for them. We're going to break into a different dimension. And people are like, what the hell did you just say?
Oak Ridge?
Maybe. And they're like, oh, well, we already did that experiment. We were just, it's like, that's not at all what they meant what they said the first time.
That's like the same story with the Montauk Project.
Yeah.
Right? They accidentally opened up something they shouldn't, and what appears to be like an angry dog man Bigfoot escaped and killed a bunch of people.
Yeah.
And then let's immediately shut down the base after that and just act like that never happened. And then the rest of the story behind that is so freaking fictional. It's laughable, and I think it's part of disinformation.
And Stephen King did a book about it many years ago. The Mist.
Yeah, the Mist. Well, yeah.
That's a terrifying book and movie. The movie is actually quite good too.
I live entirely too close to those things. Like The Mist is something I don't watch because that fog rolls through the valley one day, and I'm going to be like, oh shit.
Yep,
there it is. What did you guys do?
Yep.
Yeah,
Time
but
it's getting the Prius and evacuate.
No.
That's what I call my Ford Excursion, by the way. It identifies as a Prius.
It identifies. My diesel identifies as electric.
Yep.
Yeah. Now there's so many bizarre things that go on, and when they do let things slip, like again, I have a lot of friends. Like we shoot at the same places. We got to know each other. I've known these guys for years, and they're all very tight-lipped about things. And the reality is their security, right? Like most of the people, I know some of the scientists too. I've had some of them on these shows. I was able to get them to come on. Security guys, I like their observation because when you talk to the nerds get excited and they're, well, it's science. And it's like, that seems weird. You talk to the security guys, like, what's going on out there? I don't like it. I'm not on the night shift anymore. I kiss my ass. I'm not even driving down that road anymore. Like, I don't care. Union, file what you want with the union. I'm not driving down it. It's interesting. It's so interesting, the things that just at all the national labs that no one looks at. We ignore.
And the national parks.
You mean the containment zones?
That's correct. Yeah. The pre-designated zones.
We have something out here in Texas, heading out towards East Texas, where I'm from. Mm-hmm. And I think it's out near Palestine, Texas. Anyways, it's called the Forbidden Zone. And it's all a research. Oh, yeah. It's a research facility. And there's almost no information on the internet about it. But as you're driving, you'll see this 20-foot sign every 200 yards, forbidden zone. Do not come in here. Penalties, blah, 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 blah. Mm-hmm. And some of the stuff that you do get here and there is there's aliens that are in there, or that there's a zombie plague virus was made in there, and now it's a containment zone for it. And because I would actually believe that one, and that there's Bigfoot there, and it's a research facility for it. Who freaking knows, dude? The fact is that scientists thin the veil with sorcery, which people call now pharmakia or drugs. The original root word for that is called sorcery. And the other thing is through technology. Once again, linking the two. Black magic, black technology. Mm-hmm. Why? Why can we not divide the two anymore? Why is it when the iPhone was created, all right, the guy who created the iPhone and the iPad, he wouldn't let his kids have it.
Yeah.
Would not even let his kids have it. Said, I won't even have that in my same house, but he'll sell it to you and your kids. Now, I've heard it been said before that the phone, the tablet is doing exactly what it was created to do. To distract you, to collect information on you, to monitor you, and to influence you. And in that way, I'll say all those things are absolutely correct. It does do all that.
Oh, yeah.
What's the rest of the technology that can do that as well? Man, there's all kinds. I don't know if you've seen this recently, but to talk about the despicable nature of mankind, Ukraine has a baby factory, right? A place where women can go have birth and sell their children. Massachusetts is fixing to pass a bill to do the exact same thing. So depravity is circumnavigating the globe right now. And where mass depravity comes, as new advancement in technology comes, tragedy also comes through the form of judgment.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, just to wrap this up, I'm a Christian. I was not a believer. I was a former pagan. I was everything that was against Christ at some point in time. And until Christ got a hold of me and changed my worldview, I would have laughed at this entire conversation. I was a government guy through and through. Some of the jobs that we've talked about, the security guys at the black sites, man, I wanted to be one of those guys. I wanted to be a alien cop, right? Because Fox Mulder, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was sold out to the government, not sold my soul, but like I was a Fed boy. I was all about it. And the more I got closer to Christ, the more my eyes opened spiritually to the deviousness of this world. And I have just come to my own understanding that there is most definitely a God, because there is most definitely a devil.
Mm-hmm.
And for anyone who does not know Jesus, now is not the time to play games with God. I would tell them to come to Christ. There's not a bunch of wonky stuff you got to do. You just got to accept Christ as your Lord and Savior and repent. That's it. Everything else is a blood ritual, right? You got to do a ritual. All these things, these man-made things, these demonic things, they're rituals. And there is such a vehemence against Christ. It should be overwhelmingly alarming to people that the closer we grow to the end of times, the stranger things are going to get, the more dangerous things are going to get. There'll be more wars, rumors of wars, famines, plagues, pestilence. A man's enemies will be in his own household. These things are happening right now, right? Last night I was praying because now I've come full circle. I'm a preacher, all right? I minister to people. The people I minister to typically are people like me, hard guys who have had a hard life. They've been in combat or in law enforcement, and they don't take to the softer, gentler side of Christianity. So I approach them the way I would approach any of my men, with just bald honesty, right? And I'll tell you that the average man is just hurting and turns to alcohol, drugs, pornography, adultery. They turn to everything but Christ. And all those things hurt you. None of them heal you. So if you're one of those people, man, stop doing it. Give your burdens to Jesus. He can bear it. You were never supposed to have bared it. But we're going to reach, Ollie, I believe, we're going to reach a peak of the weirdness. And with that peak of the weirdness, there's going to come a sense of great terror. The world's going to end, great terror is going to happen, and eventually the world governments are going to stop trying to kill each other and unite. And it's going to be after they try to kill each other, there will be a uniting. And sometime in between there and now, technology is going to advance so much that every person in the world will probably have free internet and a free phone or something like that, right? Because the whole world will need to see the Antichrist.
Nothing is free. Yeah.
Yeah, nothing's free. That's the goal. That's the goal. And everywhere along the way will be members of religious factions who are going to be there to be put as a stumbling stone in your path getting closer to Christ. Look at the Vatican. Look at this Pope. And tell me that's the epitome of a Christian. Look at Joe Biden. He's a Catholic. That's the epitome of a Christian? No, that's the epitome of a cult. All right. Of course, because he's a freaking pedophile. That's why he's
He's a
controlled.
pedophile. Yeah.
And these are the people that are our world leaders. I have no idea why they don't like Trump. I have no idea if Trump's a part of it or not. Trump's daughter is Kabbalist. His son-in-law is Kabbalist. His son-in-law worked for George Soros. Trump was a Democratic member who was best friends with Hillary and Bill Clinton before he became a Republican and decided to run against them. But he's always said he's going to run for president, and he always said he wanted to fix America. So you can decide on what you want for political stuff. As for me and my house, as Joshua says, we will serve the Lord. I will not be another part or pawn of the government's game ever again. I'm never going to go back overseas, ever going to be overseas 3 times. I'm never going to go back ever and serve these people again, because it's all coming to the demise of us. We, the people, are who is now in the crosshairs. And we love talking about aliens. We love talking about politics. We love talking about sports. But I'm telling you, there is a secret power at work. His name is Satan, Lucifer. He is the father of all lies, and every lie is being spun up right now to hyperinflate or make you paranoid about everything. And the one thing this world will not tell you is the way out is through Christ. The only way to the Father is through the Son. And there's many who are going to come saying that they are Jesus, and they will be false Christs. And Jesus warns of this in Matthew 24. There's going to be many false Christs. Many of them that will say, I am Jesus. So as Christians, as baby Christians, as people who are just kind of dabbling, touching the water a little bit, to come into God and be a part of the throne room, I'll tell you this much: there is no fence with God. The devil created the fence. The devil makes you believe that, well, I'm not really for God, or I'm not really for Satan. I'm just kind of riding the fence. There is no fence. You're either for Christ or you're anti-Christ. Christ says that. Likewise, and I'll end with this, is that one of the greatest achievements Satan ever did, and it's not great, but it's one of his greatest feats, is to make even a Christian believe that after sinning, you can repent tomorrow. You can always ask for repentance tomorrow. After you go and you get drunk and you get high at the bar or the club, or whatever, and you're driving with your buddies. Oh, man, I feel really bad about this. I'm definitely going to church tomorrow. And then, bam, T-boned. One of your friends die. You could always repent tomorrow. No, that's not true. That's not true. You have that inclination in your chest where you know you're doing something wrong. It's called the Holy Spirit. And people need to start listening to that, because the adverse of the Holy Spirit is the unholy. And the world is filled with that. That's why the world fears Christians and wants to stop this conversation from happening right now. Many people in the comment section don't like the fact that I'm on here and I'm talking about Christ, and I'm not talking about you precious aliens, and I'm talking about repentance, not sinning. You can like me or not. I'm not here to make friends with anybody. I don't get paid to be someone's friend. That's what I told people when I was a cop, especially when I was their supervisor. I'm not paid to be your buddy. I'm not paid to be your friend. Do your job, period, or I'm going to come down on you. The same thing as being a Christian, being a preacher. You better take your spiritual life seriously, because Satan takes it serious enough to confuse you and confound you and to lie to you. You better take it seriously. You may wake up, dude, and not be here, right? And that happens to a lot of people. It's very unfortunate. When my father died, he was a 32nd degree Mason, worshipful master, antichrist, denied Christ, and I preached to him. Actually, my first sermon I ever wrote, I did, we're at the hospice, and I'm for about 2 weeks, I have been experiencing my father have demonic manifestations as he was dying.
Mm-hmm.
He had severe Alzheimer's, or dementia, severe dementia. And dementia is like the scariest thing ever, right? My dad was in his early 80s, and my dad was a strong man. He was very strong, very funny. He was a what we would call a skald. He was a storyteller. And right there at the end of his life, something just manifested. Some people will say, well, that's just dementia. I've been around people around dementia. What happened was not that. What happened was a full exposure of a demonic force that was inside my dad, because he accepted the God of Freemasonry. He denied Jesus as being the Son of God. He said Allah is God. Look, these things are not true. And I know many people who are Freemasons who tried to get me into that blasphemous organization. You are not worshiping who you think you are. And at 1300, 1 o'clock for you civilians, I was finishing my first sermon that I was ever writing. And by the time I pressed amen, period, my dad passed away. It was ugly. It was very ugly. It's very hard to talk about, but I talk about it because those experiences need to be said to people, because other people have these experiences. That night, coming home from the hospice, I was visited by whatever was the freaking doppelganger demon thing that was attached to my dad. And I have seen it several times now. And one of the things that held back my family for the longest time as a generational curse was that of alcohol, adultery, violence, and other things of that. So as my dad's dying in the hospital, I am at his home, and I am just pleading the blood of Jesus over it. And it felt like I was in a whirlwind. I felt like I was in a physical fight. And I'm reading the gospel. I'm blessing his home. And alcohol was my dad's biggest thing, his biggest demise. And so I went and I poured out all the bottles of alcohol, Jack Daniels. Me and him used to drink Jack Daniels. I was drinking Jack Daniels with my dad when I was probably 5 or 6 years old. 80s were different, right? I'm an 80s kid. 80s were wild. I took all those bottles that was the identity of the relationship between me and my dad, and I poured them all out. And I went outside, I poured them out, and I put them right there on the back porch. And I just said to whatever's here, that's all that's left of my dad. Your alcoholism, that generational sin, I break it now in the name of Jesus. There it lays and there it stays. You won't be coming with me. And then I go to the hospice. This all happened the same day. I go to the hospice. It's my turn to sit with my dad. My dad passes away. That night, I was woken up at 3 o'clock in the morning in sleep paralysis. And all I could do is move my head. I could not move at all. And I saw from the back door, because it has a big window light, the image of my dad. Like to a T, that's my dad, right? Wearing what he always wore, is a V-neck shirt, because I don't know why he loved V-necks. V-neck white shirt and his little blue jean shorts and his work tennis shoes. And it was staring at me. And the countenance was very dark, so I couldn't see like here, but I could see down. Like light shined up, but it didn't come across his face. Mm-hmm. And then I blinked, things gone. It's standing right beside me. Now I'm in my dad's rocking chair that he fell asleep drunk in all the time and burnt cigarette holes into it. I'm asleep holding my daughter, Sarah, and I see this thing sitting right here behind me. And all I can see is its head scanning the room like this. My son is over here. My 2 daughters are over here. My stepmother is in their room. My wife is behind me with our newborn son. And I knew it was looking for me or for the next generation. God showed me that. And that experience, after already being a Christian and being exposed to many things, that experience completely opened my eyes to a whole new world, a whole new way of thinking about this, and that thing was real. Whatever that was, that thing was real. because as soon as it disappeared, this whole event lasted about 45 seconds, maybe a minute. I mean, I was terrified. I was petrified. I was truly in duress, because that's what a demon does when it's in your presence. It pushes out this this aura of fear. Same thing like when
Oppression.
people,
Yeah.
when people also experience Bigfoot, they experience the same thing. Oh, there's a link there. That's what happened to me. And I like to share that experience because not a lot of men like to talk about that. And as Christians, we're supposed to be sharing our experiences for those who have the same type of encounters.
Mm-hmm.
If that's ever happened to you, that is a demonic entity that was near you. Plead the blood of Christ around you and your family.
That's happened to me. Not exactly how you said, but very similar. I've told you about it, David. But yeah, I the whole paralyzed thing as well. Yeah, I can definitely resonate with that. And it is terrifying.
And that same type of thing that I just talked about is very reminiscent to alien encounters and abductions in people's bedrooms.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we went over that with Fringe when she was on it, which drops, I think, Monday. It's a wild episode. But we've been running for 2 hours and
this has been a
minutes.
long one, but it's been a great show. Yeah.
And we appreciate it. We'd love to have you on again, man. You know, whenever it's convenient.
Yeah, we should make it a thing then, you know. Rekka, we love having you here.
It's fun.
It's dark, but it's fun.
It's always good to bring the light to the darkness.
But it's fun, yeah. I think there's a lot of sense in what Rekka's saying, people. So make sure you go and follow the American Vindicta show. Is it just YouTube where you are? Are you on Twitter? You're on Twitter as well, aren't you?
No, I had like an incognito Twitter account. I would only go on Twitter for like the news, because it is the best place to get like current news, but it is a horrific site to be on. And so I would occasionally go on there and look at news. Like if there was an active shooter going on, that's like the best place to go. And I would quickly sign in and look, get my information and get out, and then like cover myself in the blood of Jesus. But no, I'm mainly on YouTube. Also on Rumble as a backup. I never talk about these few things. I have a Patreon channel. Never talk about that. I'm like the world's worst at promoting myself. So if you give me like 30 seconds, I have another 2 channels. One is called Wrecker Reads, READS, Reads. And that's where I'm going to start doing a lot of recordings on different stories. One of them that I've already posted one is called the Haunted Mineral Wells, a town right next to us that has involved everything from Satanism, human trafficking, child sacrifice, underground tunnels, and a Nazi scientist who experiments on people right here in the town next to me. And the Baker Hotel, the most haunted hotel in Texas. And so that's on there. That's the Wrecker Reads channel. And then we just started a channel for our tactical training company called Vindicta Solutions. So if you go on YouTube, you just type in Vindicta Solutions, you should see a wolf skull with a spear sticking through it. That's us. We also do tactical training. If you visit www.vindictasolutions.com, you can see the type of training that we do. We try to put on at least one bit of training every month. Then we're putting in some advanced courses soon. So if you ever have any questions about any of that, you can just contact us through the website, or you can contact me at AmericanVindictaShow@gmail.com. More especially, if you need someone to pray with, if you need someone to pray over you, you got things coming up, give us a call. Email us. We'll put you on the prayer list. Secondarily, if you ever have a cattle mutilation, please email me, because this is something that needs to be fleshed out way more than it is. There's way more to it than I even wanted to go into and describe, just because I don't want to give up trade secrets and standard operating procedures. But AmericanVindictaShow@gmail.com. Ollie, Dave, dudes, thanks for having me on. Tell Lee I wish him best of luck. I hope he's feeling better. We'll be praying for him.
It sounds terrible, but
well, anytime you guys want me back on, man, just let me know. I'm available.
Yeah.
All right, man. Just hang out for a second while we play credits, if you would, because then we shut it off.
It's a very sad day. This is a dark day in America.
It's good to be back. We didn't push the merch.
There
Next
you go.
time. Next
Check the
time.
merch out.